Good evening, Bulls fans. Welcome to Bulls and Beers, UBBullRun.com's weekly football podcast. This week we'll be wrapping up the 51-14 Week 1 victory over Albany and moving ahead to Penn State, UB's Week 2 opponent. I'm Matt Gritzmacher. I'm joined by John in Buffalo and Conrad in Hawaii. We are without the blog father, Tim Reardon, right now. Might be able to join us, might not. I'm not sure. Real life happens. Tim, we hope everything's okay. We hope to hear from you. Without Tim, the three of us are going to hold down the fort. Tim usually runs the show, so we'll see how this goes. Tim's opening remarks today kind of focused on Penn State. You know, we're going to have to recap Albany first, but if you haven't heard yet, Penn State kind of got beat up and smacked in the mouth by Temple. Gave up 10 sacks, jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and then allowed 27 straight points and lost the game. Tim thinks that there's room there, and I think a lot of folks around our site think that there's hope and think that Penn State showed some real weak points while UB showed some strong points. We're going to talk about that. We've been asked after last week, we've been asked to talk about what we're drinking. This is Bowls and Beers. We've made a bit of a show out of that. Without Tim, it's a little bit of a smaller round table, but I'll go first. I am not drinking beer tonight. I'm still celebrating women's soccer's historic win over the Syracuse Orange, so I'm drinking orange juice, gin and juice, orange juice and gin tonight. Next week I'll be back to beer. John and Conrad, what are you drinking?
Tonight I am drinking Shock Top tonight. I had my fill of liquor last night while we were doing our Olympic podcast, so I decided to just stick with beer tonight. So, big fan of Belgian style beers, and Shock Top's one of my favorites.
See, and I'm going with Sierra Nevada Roofless Rye IPA. My corner store had a 24-pack of bottles for $12. I think they got a shipment that was, I guess, close to being past its sell-by date, so they're just getting rid of it. Best deal I've ever had, 50-cent beers. I've been nursing that for a couple of weeks, so I've been doing Sierra Nevada for a long time. So, yep,
Yeah,
that's what I got today.
Rufus Rye is their spring seasonal, I think. I remember getting it in March a couple of years ago, so that they must have been trying to get rid of it. But I like that one. I'm a favorite of mine. So there you go, Dave O'Neill. We'll do that every week now, but that's for you and your request. First things first, Albany. Albany game, or 10 minutes of worry. You know, it's easy now to look back and say 51 points, a punt return touchdown, real diverse offense, and we'll talk about all of that. If you missed the first 10 minutes of the Albany game and tuned in with UB down 7-0, if you missed the first quarter and tuned in with it only tied 7-7, there was some worry there. It's hard to kind of give it the emotional weight it had at the time because UB scored 44 more points in the last three quarters. But there was a little worry after UB was really caught in the battle for three quarters with Duquesne last year and allowed an early touchdown against Norfolk State last year. 2 years ago, real drag-it-out 12-round fight against Stony Brook. That here we go again. We thought that UB's offense was going to manage it, UB's size advantage was going to manage it, and it did eventually. But those first 10 minutes were pretty tough. I don't know if you guys have anything to say on that. I think we're going to move on to what we learned from here, so maybe we should just do that. Whatever you guys want to say on Albany.
Just to your point on like the worry, for those who I don't know if anyone wasn't paying attention, but I was in the press box for the game, and I believe I think it was Bucky Gleason was sitting in front of me, and as soon as the Albany scored the opening touchdown, he just said, "Oh, here we go again." And I think that was kind of the thought of everyone in the room, but he was the only one to really say it out loud. And it kind of creeped into my head. Was like, "Oh, here we go." It's another one of those games. It's going to be another Stony Brook. But obviously, we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. coming up here soon. But yeah, in the press box, everyone kind of had that thought. Oh, here we go again. It's same old UB. But obviously, that wasn't really the case.
I think it's funny. The Stony Brook is the model for us failing against FCS, but that game we had under control. It's probably the exact opposite of this game. It was 10-0 for a long time before Stony Brook, I think, scored 3, and then they scored on the final drive of the fourth to send it to overtime. So it wasn't the same. Stony Brook was kind of, we were just waiting for us to send the knockout punch because we had controlled that game. And I think they hadn't converted a third down until the final drive they converted to. Norfolk, I think we gave up that very long pass, and we had been giving up long, big plays for a long time with Tepper. And so that was the problem with that game. And after that moment, I think we went with a Devin Hughes long touchdown, and that was solved right away. I think for me, the worry was the defense. I didn't want to see him get pushed around. We didn't want to see him give up a lot of completions. And in that first drive, it was mostly passing, so they gave up some quick completions. So definitely worried about the defense, but they came back and adjusted and played really well after that. So, the offensive drive, we had 2 runs and an incomplete pass for a quick 3-and-out. But I think we expected to see some more from Lance. So I don't know how nervous it was, and I don't think it was a here we go again moment. But give it another 5 or 10 minutes of bad play, another Albany touchdown, then maybe it would have been much more nervous.
Yeah, 7's not too bad with our offense. I don't think anyone on our schedule this year is going to hold us under 20 points. So 7 doesn't scare me. I think again, it's hard to talk about it now after the fact, but I think you're right with that idea that it's not too much of a concern once he started to stop Albany. With that, big takeaways from Albany. UB really controlled this game for so much so that they got the whitewater treatment. Licata came out with 21 minutes still to go. Jordan Johnson had 1 carry beyond the main offensive starters before Jonathan Hawkins came in. The entire second-string defense was in basically the entire fourth quarter. And UB really got to do what they wanted to do in this game, so there's a lot to learn from it, I think, in terms of Coach Leipold and his approach. I think there's a little bit less to learn, because Albany's not too much of a quality opponent that we can take into Penn State and even into Florida Atlantic, who was in a shootout against Tulsa this weekend, Norrington, Nevada, the week after that. My big thing that I was really pleasantly surprised by is the number of true freshmen that played this week. We had been told all week that Jonathan Hawkins was going to play as a freshman, and he got third-string running back reps towards the end of the game. Tony Daniel vultured his touchdown. We were told that Brandon Smiley at wide receiver was going to play. And on the defensive side, we didn't hear so much of that, but a couple dinged-up safeties led to Brandon Standback, who I've been really high on. He played for an awesome defense at Bishop McDevitt in Pennsylvania. Played in the backfield as a true freshman, and on the line, Charles Harris and Justin Brandon both played as true freshmen. And I'm going to come back to those freshmen on the line, but I think that's the biggest thing that I'm pleased with was Leipold's willingness to play true freshmen. In general, it might look like a sign of weakness of talent on the roster, and I can understand that. I think that's a valid point. But I think most of us are feeling like this is a team that's somewhere in that 5 to 8 win range. And so if Leipold thinks that he's got guys who are marginally better and they're worth playing as a freshman, then I'm glad to see it, because it might be what pushes UB from 6 wins to 7 wins and into a bowl, or 5 wins to 6 wins and bowl eligible. I know everyone's talking about the young guys, but I'll turn it over to you guys. What did you see? What did you like? What comes out of the Albany game for you?
I love the offense. After watching Jeff Quinn's offense from my freshman year up until last year, I didn't see any. There was no sort of tempo. There was no anything, and I absolutely hated the clap that Joe Licata would always have to do to get the ball snapped. Now they're actually using a regular snap count, which I love. and there was also a lot of variety in the offense, which I really liked too. I believe there was a sequence. Yeah, I want to say it was in the second quarter. I have to dig up my notes from the game where uh, we went to a no huddle offense, and we started playing tempo, and we were just gashing Albany for chunks at a time. And I think we went from a strong I formation to a 5 wide receiver formation, then back to a single back formation with 2 tight ends. So what I saw was there's a lot. There's a lot of tempo concepts that are being used in the offense, which I like. I like up tempo, keep the defense on their heels, keep pushing them back, and there was a lot of variety in the play calling and the formations. I think there were more run plays called than pass plays, but I'll attribute that to it being kind of a blowout game towards the end, so they're just killing clock. But I really liked how there was just a variety of different formations, and a lot of times when they would go to 5 wide, they would line up Matt Weiser, and he'd be covered by a cornerback, and Joe Licata took advantage of that nearly every single time it happened, which was nice too. I'll kind of open it up for whoever else wants to jump in.
I think I like the offense too. I think in 2010 when Quinn came in, we expected a wide open, creative offense after the damage they were able to do in Cincinnati, and then we kind of got this vanilla offense that was predictable and wasn't very fun. And then, obviously it's because no one really had seen a lot on Leipold, but everything was unpredictable. Everything was fluid. I thought we were going to get more vanilla because it was Albany, but I think we got a little more taste of what he has in store than what I would have wanted. So I think Penn State's going to have some tape to study, but you also think that there's more in store there because he just had so many different looks to throw out there. And like you said, the play action pass, or not the play, but the hurry up after a big play, after every big play, we were hurrying up to the line, catching the defense off guard. We were doing some stuff that really worked, and we're really happy about it. Going for it on 4th down a couple times with, I thought our play on short yardage, which has been a bugaboo for us, was really good. And we threw it sometimes, we ran it sometimes, we kept it mixed up. There was no, with Jeff Quinn, you kind of knew on 3rd and 1, he's either going to line everyone up on the line and dive right in the middle, or he's going to try to throw a touchdown pass for 50 yards out. And half the time it was stuffed or an interception. So it was really exciting. Even on the other side, I like when Albany had their big drive at the end of the second half. You saw coach call the timeout, let our defense regroup. Coming out of that timeout, we got the interception. So, I don't know if we would have had that same play a year ago. Just a real difference between a guy who's been coaching for a long time as a head coach and kind of knows how to manage the game and manage his players, is not afraid to burn a timeout to fix the defense of the lineman, get them back on track, and obviously paid dividends. What else? I think definitely, John, it was the run game took off in the 3rd and 4th quarter. When the game was out of hand, but I think our first touchdown drive, we just ran the ball down their throats to get there, and so I think that's where our advantage was, and it was nice to see Leipold find a way to take advantage of it after getting stuffed on the first drive. And outside of that, I don't really know if we learned too much because there's just a lot of question marks about what was real and what was fake, but it's very exciting. I think we learned that he can coach, and he's always been one to say that coaching's coaching, whether it's Division III high school or Division I. And I think if we have good players and he has a good scheme, and I think if he seems like a good coach, and I'm really excited to see what he does next week.
Yeah, I'm interested in talking a little more about individuals. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. The defensive side of the ball I'm going to save for kind of when we move on after this section to Penn State. But individuals on the offense, I know that it's Albany. I understand that. I was impressed by Licata. Last 2 seasons he's come in having or this is 2 seasons in a row he's come in having battled some hip injuries in the past, and we heard things over last summer that he was back to 100% after a hip surgery, and we had reasons not to believe that. And then at the end of the season, he missed spring ball for a hip surgery. Yesterday, a lot of the criticisms is a strong word. A lot of things we've said about Licata that could be connected to the hip woes, I think, came out well. He had more zip on his longer throws than I expected, more zip and less arc. And whether it was Albany or not, he had some really good placement. 3 throws in particular, he had a bit of a flag route to, I think it was Weiser, but it could have been Shrek, that dropped in just over the cornerback and under the safety and went for 24 yards on 3rd and 8. That was on the drive that Anthony Taylor finished off with a 21-yard run. He had that long pass to Colin Lisa right down the middle of the field, far enough ahead that only Lisa could get to it, and he did. That's takes some real touch, and maybe he had that in the past, and Lisa went and got it, but it was a good throw. And then the pass to Jacob Martinez, Martinez went out and got it, but I was really pleased with that pass because there was no way the cornerback was going to break that up. It was just a matter of does Martinez catch it or does he not. And that's the type of throw that I think we get to see from Licata as a now 3.5. I'll nearly call him a 4-year starter, but not quite. As a longtime starter at UB, he's making those smart throws too, not just having the skills and the talent to put one to thread the needle or make a quick read or something, but he's also able to throw it where only his guy can catch it and make some tough throws. So I was really pleased with that. I guess the running backs, we got what we expected out of them. But I just wanted to talk about Licata. I was impressed, even against weaker competition where he had time in the pocket. I thought some of his throws were throws that he wasn't able to make last year. John, you might have more. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So speaking of Licata, there's a thing in the Leipold offense. It's a huge staple of the offense. It's called a married play. And Leipold in the post-game press conference and Licata himself, they both talked about it. And basically what it is Licata snaps the ball. It's almost kind of like a read option. So Licata snaps the ball. He puts the ball in the chest of the running back, and he reads the defense and see what's going on, and he can choose to either can complete the handoff or pull it in and throw it. And really the best example of it was the first touchdown that he threw to Marcus McGill. So if you watch the ball was right in Anthony Taylor's gut, and in a split second, Licata pulled it out, and then he hit McGill, who's wide open in the end zone. And Licata said that there's no matter what look a defense gives our offense, we always have an answer for it because of that openness of the offense where he can make the decision to do A or B depending on what the defense is giving him. And to your point, yes, his decision making, especially being out of spring ball, not having the time to actually practice the plays, he did very well. He was 20 of 26, 246 yards and the 2 touchdowns. Probably would have been 3 or 4 if Mason Shrek hadn't been tackled at the 1-yard line twice.
And Willoughby. Although that might have been on the McGill drive, so maybe that wouldn't have. Oh, Conrad's telling me no.
Yeah,
and Willoughby.
Yeah, you have the McGill, the Willoughby stumble led to a field goal.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first Shrek one was on the 4th and 2. That was earlier in the game.
Yeah,
that was on
4th and 2. Going back to scheme, that was, I thought, a high-risk play call. It worked. Conrad brought up the short yardage situations, and I was really pleased. You look at UB's third down percentage, they were 5 for 13, and that's generally good. That's not a number that if UB's defense gave up 5 for 13 on 3rd down, I'd be upset. But I'm pleased with that. But then you look at 4th down, and UB was 3 for 3 on 4th down. And 2 of those were on the final drive when they were just giving it to Jonathan Hawkins over and over again. and then Tony Daniel punched it in for the touchdown. But that first one was that throw to Weiser on 4th and 2 from the 4 or 5 maybe. And that was a long throw. Like that for picking up 3 yards, that was a long throw across the field to the sideline, a bit of a fade. Real gutsy play call. And I mean, if you're going to be gutsy, do it against Albany. I cut you off to say all of that, John.
That's fine. I like the fact that Leipold, he trust. Licata said that Leipold has full faith in his players and he trusts them, and I'm going to believe Joe because Leipold did go for 4th down. He put his faith in his players. He let them do what they were trained to do, and they executed. I don't know. I don't really have too much to complain about. All I have is good things to say. They came out and executed. Licata is going to be. This offense is going to really put his. I think one of his best traits is his decision making, and this offense is all about good decision making, which you can say that about any offense, really. You have to make good decisions wherever. But the offense is predicated on these married plays where it's a run or pass option, and Licata's smart enough to read a defense and know what's, even if the initial play call is a bad one, he can alter it to make it into a good play, which is good. Another guy that I wanted to quickly hit on was Colin Lisa. He, like you said earlier, he caught that beautiful bomb from Licata, dropped right into his hands. He had another catch, I think it was in the 3rd quarter. He caught it. It was on a crossing route. Caught it in the middle of the field. That was immediately hit, and there was kind of a gasp, when he got hit. But he held onto the ball and then just hopped right up. And I think that's part of everyone was ranting and raving about his hands and how good he was at catching the football. So I think that'll be good for him going forward. So we got to see that Colin Lisa is the real deal.
Yeah. One quick thing, if you're interested more in what John's talking about, the concept of married plays, look up a book called Smart Football by Chris Brown. Chris Brown writes for Grantland, or did write for Grantland. I don't know what state that website is in. But Chris Brown talks about the evolution of football and the evolution of schemes, and certainly among these two that I'm with tonight, and probably including Tim in that group, I consider myself kind of the football dummy of the blog. And Chris Brown's book it's technical, but it's pretty accessible, and there's a lot about having multiple play options in one formation, and in one play there's 3 or 4 different plays packaged into one that can be adjusted both at the snap and after the snap. It's real interesting stuff. I'd recommend it. Last thing that we'll talk about for Albany before we move on to Penn State, which is I think what we really want to talk about now. I think we acknowledge that Albany we got the win, and there it is. We're going to quickly run through our players of the game for Albany. And I think Tim is going to do something, maybe it's Conrad, but somebody's going to do something with this later in the week. I'll start with Tim's name and loop around and come back to me. Tim put forward Boise Ross for Albany, player of the week. I assume that he did that because of the interception coming right out of the half. He didn't leave many notes for me, so I'll pretend that I'm Tim for a minute and guess at what he would say. Ross had the interception right out of the half, really swung the momentum from UB's already up 24-7, doing pretty good, to now we're ready to take over. He dropped an interception early in the first half somewhere, and that's why he's a defensive back now maybe. Probably would say something about the switched positions, probably would say something about how good he's looked in the spring. Boise Ross had that interception that I think really, even at 3 minutes in, if that long, into the third quarter, was pretty much the nail in the coffin once UB scored out of that. John did predict Boise Ross to be all MAC this year. He'll tell you that plenty of times the rest of the season. Conrad, it's been a while. Who's your player of the game from Albany?
So my player of the game is Joe Licata. I'm not even really buying a lot of what is said of his progress now, or I'm not even attributing it to Lance Leipold, but I think that'll help. I think he's been really good with the weapons we've had. So if your weapon was Alex Newts, he was really good at getting Alex Newts. And by yards per target, he was throwing to Alex Newts, and it was the most efficient place to throw the ball. People didn't like the laser lock, but when he threw it to other people, they didn't get the same amount of yards per target. And the same with Ron Wilby last year. But in this game, he had 4 receivers record more than 10 yards per target. That was Ron Willoughby, who's the best, Mason Schreck, Colin Lisa, and Jacob Martinez. So all 4 of those were great options for him, and I think it's just going to be the culmination of all his experience and having so many weapons. His highest target receiver was Matt Weiser, who actually was less than 5 yards per target. So he was kind of the worst option, and it went there more often than it should have probably. But we'll see how that progresses throughout the year. But after that first drive where Licata just had his one missed pass and on the 3-and-out, it kind of looked like it was a squad team and they were practicing on the 7-and-7 drill because Licata had time and he could just find whoever he wanted and he got the throw in. And then with the win, he's got his 17th win as a starter, which is third most as a Bull. It ties Khalil Mack, Dominic Cook, and Trevor Sales with 17 wins as a starter. And very impressively, he is now 11-2 in his career at UB Stadium. One of those losses coming to Baylor. So one of the great things that has happened in the last 2 or 3 years is that if you go to UB Stadium, you're expecting a win, and Licata is a big reason for that. Since he's come in, they have been a really, really good home team. So he's my player of the game, and I'm going to pass it on.
All right. My player of the game, I picked Nick Gilbo on the defensive side, and I picked him for a couple of reasons. One, the defense is really young. There's on the defensive line and in the defensive backfield, it's primarily redshirt freshmen, future freshmen, and sophomores. And Gilbo was one of the guys along with Ocasio-Lozzi, they're actually the seniors that they're the leadership group there. And he was all over the field. He was in most every running play. He dropped back into coverage and did really well. He had one diving pass breakup. I think it was on a 3rd down in the 3rd quarter. It was a really nice play that he made, and then he had the first interception basically killed the Albany drive that Conrad mentioned earlier. It was right before halftime, and Albany had gotten the ball back, and they were marching down the field, and I think they had just crossed over into UB territory, and Gilbo dropped back into coverage. Actually, Ocasio-Lozzi pressured the Albany quarterback, dropped back into coverage, and picked it off. Really killed all the momentum that Albany had started to kind of build back, even though we were ahead by a good amount. I didn't really want to see Albany gain any momentum at all going into the half because that could have steamrolled into something after the half, and he killed it. Played well. He's one of my favorite players on the defense, so he's my player of the game.
Yeah, we've got 3 defensive players to 1 offensive player in our player of the game go around here. I went with Ocasio-Lozzi. I was originally going to go with Ross because he had that interception, and then I decided that Lozzi made the interception happen by blitzing off the corner. And Lozzi also had 1 sack and a forced fumble. I think a sack, a forced fumble, a quarterback hurry that led to an interception. He kind of was the Conrad's making faces at me. I went with Lozzi. You all know what happened there with him. He's my player of the game. I think right now he's UB's most dangerous option on the defense, and that's how I feel. Scares me a little bit for what UB can bring to Penn State. With that, we're putting Albany behind us. I think John put up his report card for the game today. And Conrad, I think, has one more post tomorrow talking about the Albany game. One of Conrad's patented graph posts. Always good to see some graphs from Conrad. Anyway, with that, I'm pretty sure we're just about done talking Albany as a blog entirely, and on this podcast we are. Penn State, like we said at the beginning of the show, really started out strong against Temple, who hadn't beaten Penn State since 1941. And they started out strong, jumped out to a 10-0 lead. Were moving down the field, and then the Owls just kind of took over, and Temple finished with 10 sacks, including 2, I think, in the final 2 minutes. Why Christian Hackenberg was still on the field, I'm not entirely sure. One of the sacks came on a 2-man rush. Conrad's got a gif of it somewhere. It's never good to give up a sack to a 2-man rush, but things like that keep Lou Tepper around. Tim's notes say that Penn State may have the worst line in FBS football, and it showed. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm a proxy Tim tonight. So I read it. I read it. What's kind of where you're looking? What's either got you concerned or that you're excited about? What's your big spot for Penn State this coming Saturday? Either you can start. Or I can start. I'll start. My concern is the defensive line. I know that Penn State's offensive line looked bad against Temple. I know that they looked worse than that. I don't think that UB's defensive line looked great in getting after the quarterback, which is how Temple swung that game. They broke Christian Hackenberg's confidence. UB's defensive line did do strong against the run. Their big bodies on the offensive line were at guard, and their tackles and center were very small. But the D-line did strong against the run, but in pass rush, Charles Harris, that true freshman that I mentioned earlier, I believe he was the one through the line for the sack, and Alozzi had the other sack blitzing off the edge. I think that Temple was a great matchup for Penn State, and I don't think UB matches up in the same ways. I think that UB could beat Penn State, but Temple really provided the blueprint, and that requires a big day from the defensive lines. That's what I'm going to be looking for. I think that Buffalo needs to find a way to get to the quarterback other than Alozzi, and I think that throughout his career, and even with Adam Redden before him, UB was good at being creative and finding ways to surprise teams. All of a sudden, Adam Redden or Okezie Alozzi's in the backfield, and they were able to mix up. I think there's always been an element of unpredictability, even under Tepper, with that position in particular, that position's blitzing. But I don't necessarily have reason to believe right now that anyone else can do that, and there needs to be more than just Alozzi. I think I'm excited to see Justin Brandon and Charles Harris on the line as true freshmen. The fact that they're there, I have even less reason for excitement about that unit being able to take over a weak Penn State unit on Saturday. So that's what I'm concerned about. Also, Penn State's special teams looked really good. Our special teams are pretty good, too. We had some really great returns, even setting aside Martinez's punt return. So that's a little bit less of a mano-a-mano concern for me. But it's there. John's giving me a lot of notes about who actually had the sacks. I've got names all wrong. I'm still concerned about the freshman on the D-line. That's what I have to say. You guys stared at each other before, so John, you go first now. I'll dictate that you go.
All right. So I'm going to kind of flip it around what you said. My kind of area of concern is the UB offensive line. And I say that because against Albany, they went up against a defensive line where it was, like you said in last week's podcast, it was our third string quarterback could play on their defensive line. And they were really undersized, and compared to our guys who are the 14th biggest line in the nation, it was a pretty easy out. And my concern is how are they going to match up against the Penn State defensive line, who are a lot bigger than the Albany defensive line. And actually, BRJ left a comment So I didn't have to go look up the weights of all their starting defensive linemen. They average at about 285 pounds, and our guys on the line are just over 310, right around 315 average. So I want to see how. My concern is the offensive line keeping Licata clean. If Licata if Licata's jersey is clean the whole game, then I think we have a good shot at maybe pulling an upset. If Licata is getting smacked around the entire time and there's constantly pressure in his face, I don't think that's a possibility. So my biggest concern is the offensive line and keeping Joe Licata's shirt clean.
I think I'm looking at Akil Lynch. So he's a local guy. He a good runner. He had a good game last week. He just didn't get the ball that much. He got 10 carries, and he averaged almost 8 yards a carry, and he just didn't get the ball, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the best way to get confidence, and you saw it, I'm really looking at this game as us playing a Jeff Quinn team. The way Penn State fans are talking about it, it seems like they're a Jeff Quinn team. The way they looked, it looks like a Jeff Quinn team. And the best way for Jeff Quinn to get some comfort when he was with us was to have Brandon Oliver or Anthony Taylor break off some nice runs. The offensive line's pushing downhill. They're not worrying about protecting the quarterback. And then you have to bring more people up to stop the run, and that gives passing lanes to the quarterback, and that builds up their confidence. And then you have the offense running on both cylinders. I think the best thing we can do is keep their offense uncomfortable, keep them one-dimensional. So we can stop Lynch and then force Penn State to beat us with Hackenberg and step back on obvious passing situations. And I don't care if we send Alozi, if we send Gilbert, we send everyone. At this point, their confidence is low, and we want to keep it low. We want to get at the quarterback. So I think that's the key. Is at the beginning of the game, getting to the running game and stopping it. And kind of the flip side of the comment in our video section, what will our undersized defensive line do against a bigger offensive line? We were able to hold up against Albany. Actually, we did pretty well. The final stats don't look that great, but if you look at it before we had the before we had a 28-point lead, so when the game was within 28 points, we held Albany to 3.59 yards per run. Pretty good. So if we can hold Penn State to 3.59 per run, we're golden. But when we had a reserves in, we had that one drive. Albany just barreled over us. I think their one guy had about 60 yards on one drive, and if we see that against Penn State, we're in big trouble because they can just keep doing that, and it takes all the pressure off their offense that has all the pressure in the world on them right now. I think, if they lose to Buffalo, I think the offensive coordinator's head might be rolling. So, there's a lot of pressure going. So we got to just keep the pressure on.
Conrad, do you want to segue right into your key to the game? Do you want to talk? You kind of just hit it, but I guess now that we talk about it, these two sections aren't too different. But
yeah,
we've all talked about keys to the game. I'd like to let Conrad start here if he'll take it.
I have a lot of keys to the game. The three big keys to the game are going to be Boise Ross versus Chris Godwin. The top wide receiver of Penn State was targeted over and over again by Hackenberg, so he might have a little of that Joe Licata laser lock on that guy. And we have Boise Ross, who we really think the world of, but I don't know how tested he's been. Has he gone against a Titus Davis or one of the really top receivers in the MAC? I don't know, because by the time we got him in, and we were giving him a lot of leeway because he was new, so I don't know if he is the shutdown corner. He's a good corner. He's getting better every week. I don't know if he's shut down. We'll find out this week. If he can shut down Chris Godwin, and that's PSU's favorite receiver, we can stop Lynch. PSU doesn't really have an offense from what they showed last week other than that. And that would be great, because then we could throw anything we want at Hackenberg, and we won't have to worry about our D-line. Otherwise, if we have to be more balanced, then can our D-line get at their offensive line? We saw Temple get to the quarterback on a variety of looks, and if we can do the same thing, it'll make it a lot easier for us. If we can't, and we let PSU once again get comfortable, that'll be a problem. Another thing real quick would be Penn State, one of the reasons why I said Lynch only got the ball 10 times, and it wasn't because they got behind. It's because they got behind on the downs. And you always want to get to 2nd and 5, 3rd and short. They were at 2nd and long, 3rd and long. So if we keep them on those long distances, make them throw the ball instead of giving it to Lynch, that's really going to help. So really, the whole key is not letting them get momentum, not letting them get that ball rolling downhill. Just make it as hard as possible on them, and we'll have a fighting chance at coming away with a win.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I just wrote down in our pre-planning document, I just wrote down the name Anthony Taylor. I think we're going to talk a lot about scheme here and trenches and specific positional matchups. But I think this is a game that if I were trying to scheme for it, I would want to shorten the game. I agree with Conrad entirely, and I think a lot of Penn State fans that I've been reading over on Black Shoe Diaries agree that the offense did not look very potent against Temple. I still want to shorten the game up. I think succeed with the run, not necessarily because Penn State lost their middle linebacker. I think he's a middle linebacker. They lost a linebacker for the season, not because Temple did well on the run against them, but just because succeeding on the run shortens the game. UB had 11 drives against Albany, I think, 10 or 11. They had the punt, and then they scored on 6 of 7. Let's call it 11. I'd prefer to see it more like each team getting 8 or 9 drives this week. I'll take points however we get them, but I think shortening up the game makes everything more critical and forces the teams to take advantage of the chances they get. And I think UB with their offense is a team who will be efficient with the chances they get. It's a real similar blueprint to what women's soccer did on Sunday. I won't talk forever on women's soccer, I promise, but they played a team that in Syracuse can recruit better athletes, can recruit bigger and faster players, and got themselves into a drag-out, knockout punch where whoever can convert a chance first was going to win, and UB was able to keep Syracuse from converting their chances. And after a couple real missed close calls from UB that should have been goals, UB was able to convert first. And I think I'd like to see a real similar type of game play out against Penn State if UB is going to win. I want to see the game shortened. I want to see both teams' chances minimized because they're getting fewer drives, because I think UB has the more efficient offense. Now that I've gone big macro level, I think John wants to go back. I'll jump in with Tim for a second. Tim says stop the run and force them to pass. So thank you, Tim. And John, I think you're going to go more granular again, and floor is all yours.
All right, yeah, mine's just in general the run game for both sides. So how well does UB run? How well does UB stop the Penn State run? So Temple starting running back, I think he rushed for like 160 yards against Penn State. And to your point about Taylor, can he do something like that? Can he run for 5 or 6 yards a carry, like either his average from last year or his average from the Albany game? Actually, just a little side note, there was a scout from the Philadelphia Eagles at the game who kind of keyed in on Taylor, and that was the guy he was really looking at. So this could also be kind of a big game for Taylor in terms of his future in the NFL or something like that. This could be a game to really showcase he can run, against big name talent. And like Conrad mentioned earlier, Akeel Lynch, when he did rush the ball, he rushed really well. He had 7.8 yards per carry, and the UB D-line, the starters, while they were still rotating in through like the first half and then partway into the third quarter, they held Albany. I think they had just above two yards a carry. It was 2-point-something yards per carry. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was pretty low. But then it jumped up after the backups were just playing the whole entire time. So does the UB D-line have that same type of performance again? If they do, then, like Conrad said, if we stop their run, then we have to force them to become one-dimensional, and that makes it all the more easy on the defense. That they can kind of focus on getting after Hack and Bird. And Uh, get after Hackenberg and get him uneasy and force him to make mistakes. Um, Another thing about I know you mentioned special teams, Matt. One of James Franklin's big one of the reasons he was really successful at Vanderbilt was his special teams units were some of the best in the country. So I know some fans had been unhappy with the way Penn State's special teams have been playing, but Franklin was actually a special teams coordinator before he became a head coach. So that's one of his trademarks, something to keep an eye out for in our special teams as well. Is our field goal block unit field goal blocking for Adam Mitchison, is it better than it was? We had a blocked extra point, which really shouldn't have happened. On the field goal he did make, there was a lot of penetration. It was just a little too close for comfort with how deep the Albany guys were getting pushed back. So those are all types of things that we'll need to keep an eye out for. And if we can bust off a big return like Jacob Martinez had, that's obviously a really big swing in the game.
Yeah, I think UB's first extra point was tipped too. Unless I'm conflating that with the Boston College game right before, but somebody had an extra point that went through the uprights that was tipped. In addition to UB's blocked one, and it might have been Boston College, but I really think it was UB's first extra point. I've got something more to say, but I think Conrad wants to follow up on John's point.
Yeah, Leipold, I just want to just quickly say that Leipold in the post-game presser, he was not too pleased. That was the one thing he said he wasn't really pleased about was the blocking for the extra points and for the field goal.
I think the only thing I was going to jump in is that so it was Jahad Thomas from Temple. He had 29 carries for 135 yards, so 4.7 yards per carry. So I think if we can get that, we'll be pretty happy. And I don't think the Temple running offense is that great. They're always a pretty good running team since they've been with Adazio, who's a big offensive line guy, but I wasn't overly impressed like it's something we couldn't do. And like you said, Matt, with Penn State losing their best linebacker, and I think they're throwing a true freshman in or a redshirt freshman in to replace him.
Nice, I hadn't seen that. I just saw that he was gone.
So I'm not. Don't quote me on that, but I think there's opportunity for us to run, but we're really going to learn what our offensive line can do this week.
Yeah, something that we haven't really said yet that I'm really interested in part because BRJ in our comments, who is a Penn State fan, has brought it up, and because I think a number of people have brought it up. We've been talking about Christian Hackenberg as really just a function of the offensive line. If the offensive line is bad, we'll get to Hackenberg, and then things will happen. But we've got a little bit of extra time. I think not because we're moving too much faster, but just because there's one less voice on each go round. Hackenberg had a big freshman season, had a real tough season last year, getting sacked a ton. Obviously got sacked 10 times yesterday or 2 days ago. Like I said, twice in the final 2 minutes. What do you guys think of him? You know, some of the Penn State fans seem to think he's damaged goods. And it's kind of the end, not necessarily the end of the road, but he's not going to become what he was his freshman year in the span of 1 week after this Temple game, after last season. In general, my feeling about this game is that regardless of what weaknesses were shown, Penn State still has higher caliber pedigrees across the board, and that includes Hackenberg. I'm interested if you guys have any thoughts on him in particular, since folks who are connected to the program seem to be pretty down on him right now and think that he's pretty easily rattled. And I'm not sure if I'm willing to let myself buy into the hope that possibility presents.
I remember Hackenberg's freshman year. At the conclusion of it, everyone was told that he was going to be like the #1 pick in the draft, and now his stock is sinking like a rock. As far as him as a quarterback, I don't know, it's just the offensive lines that he's played behind have just been so bad. I don't know. I want to say it's not. He, as a quarterback, is not a function of the offensive line, and that he is still a good quarterback. There's a reason he was a five-star recruit and one of the most sought-after recruits in the nation. He's a good player, but ultimately, when you look at how a quarterback performs, how he performs is a function of how his offensive line performs, no matter how good that quarterback is. Um, so I don't know. It's kind of tough. So I think he is. I think he is good. Not necessarily like the damaged goods. I'm not like how some Penn State fans are. I mean, he still threw for 3,000, almost 3,000 yards his first two seasons. Obviously, last year he had fewer touchdowns, more interceptions than he did his freshman season. Um, but we'll just see how he pans out.
Oh. I think living through it at USC, the sanctions are it's tough because that's like a generational punishment. And I think you might be seeing it in Penn State when you see a lack of kind of depth and a lack of dynamic playmakers. And you think of, even if one or two or three guys are at Boston College or Pitt or Syracuse that would have been at Penn State, and they're missing a couple of ingredients. Looking at their offense and seeing them target, Godwin, seeing, man, I forgot to talk about him, but Brandon, let me see his name, Brandon Polk. He's blazing fast. He broke off a really long run in the Temple game, but he only got 2 carries. I think they kind of have to reconcile the talent they have and kind of reconcile what they are missing. And I think the offensive line is something that they are just it's not gonna be great this year. It's gonna take time. It happened at USC. We had pretty much a similar situation at Hackenberg. USC beat Oregon. They had their quarterback coming back. Matt Barkley was supposed to be a first-round draft pick. And in the second game of the year, his center got hurt for the season. And after that, just that one replacement, even though the center is pretty big, that one replacement knocked the rest of the season off whack. Like, that was I think if you're a fully scholarshiped FBS team, you have someone in the chamber there. If you're USC or Penn State, you have someone in the chamber. You start taking away some of those scholarships on sanctions, and you end up having a piece that fits under there that is just not going to do it. And in a thing like offensive line and defensive line, one weak link is going to break the whole chain. And I think that's kind of what's happening at Penn State. So it's really, I think it's, for Hackenberg, he's kind of just he's got to keep his confidence and got to keep making the throws and not look around and look for the pressure. And for Penn State, whoever's the next guy in, they got to really dig deep and produce. If they can't produce, then it's not going to work out.
All right, cool. That's from both of you a lot more analysis and detail than I can provide. 11:53 here. We'll start to here it's 11:53. Conrad's clock right behind him shows that it's just about 7. I don't know if you're on the Big Island, Conrad, or if you're on a different island. I don't actually know where the university is.
I'm on Oahu.
Is that the Big Island?
No.
No. Okay.
It's It's 5:53 here. Big Island is called Hawaii, so it's confusing. But yeah, I'm in Oahu, right downtown.
Right downtown. Fun game, by the way. If you stayed up for the Hawaii-Colorado game this weekend, I caught the first half and a little bit of the third quarter, but real fun. We'll be able to talk about that at a different time. It's score prediction time. We had I can't quite say this because Dave Brand has run BrewPeg, our weekly score prediction game, in the past. But I think we had a record number of pickers, especially for week 1 last week. If I dig back, we had let me dig back in a way that doesn't kill everything. We had 47 pickers last week, and I don't know if we've ever topped 50. If we had, Dave probably won't watch this, but I'll see if I can get him to chime in. We had 47 last week. We've had 2 new names jump in now this coming week. Looks like it's going to be the biggest year yet for BrewPeg and our score pick'em game. If you're watching and you don't play it, it's never too late to join. You could come in on the very last game of the season, pick a perfect score, and probably jump up into the top 5. But why not start with Penn State if you didn't start with Albany? I'll start with Tim's score again. Tim left me no notes. He just said Penn State 30, UB 17. That's Tim's pick. Tim sees Penn State scoring a number of points, but pretty much on average with what UB's defense gave up last year. And then 17 points is obviously about half of what UB scored on offense last year. Is lower than the 21 that UB scored against Baylor last year. And I think Baylor's defense last year was better than Penn State's defense last year or this year. But there will probably be fewer chances to score than UB got against Baylor with all their speed game last year. We'll go with John first. John, what are you thinking for this game?
I'm really torn on this one. On the one hand, Penn State is down. Like, they got the crap kicked out of them by Temple. It was a real kick in the gut for them, and they're vulnerable. So I have the thought that, yeah, UB can come in, they can do this upset. Leipold showed, he's good. He's a very good game manager. He has a good feel of how his players do and everything like that. But then I think it might have been Conrad who tweeted it from the Bull Run account, was Penn State is either going to be very sad or very mad. And my inkling is that they are going to be very mad. And that's why I am picking Penn State 35, UB 28.
I missed the UB score there, John.
28.
28. All right. Conrad has asked to go last, so even though I just gave Tim's, I'll go mine. I honestly don't see Penn State's anger or being out to prove something as a big factor in this one. I think it happened with Pitt. Conrad will have this game right, but when Bowling Green beat Pitt in Week 1 a couple years ago, it might have been 2012. Bowling Green beat Pitt in Week 1, and we got Pitt in Week 2, and it was a close game. We showed that we could match up with Pitt, but Pitt was on a mission because Bowling Green had shown that they were beatable the week before, and Bowling Green basically did to them what we would have done. I don't think that kind of element is as much in play against Penn State. I normally here would take a big cue from the legions of Penn State fans on the internet talking, but I think their assessments of the team are even more hyperbolic than normal because the opponent this week was Temple. And like I said earlier in the show, it's the first time Temple's beaten Penn State since 1941. We all know why we dislike Temple. Penn State dislikes them for all the same reasons and more. And I really don't think that Penn State is in as bad a shape as their fans think right now. And I think Temple is a very good team. I think Temple's defense is good enough to be top 15 in FBS this year. I think they're going to succeed against everybody. That said, like I said at the top of the show, I don't think there's a single team on UB's schedule that holds their offense to under 20 points. So I've got UB down for 28 points this game. I'm real similar to John. I'm going to put Penn State down for 33. I think I've got Penn State 33, UB 28. I think even that is going to give UB fans a lot of positive energy. I want to win. Let me make no bones about it. I'd love a win. All I care about is wins. That when we talk about scheduling FCS schools, people remember wins. They don't necessarily remember the fact that one of them came against Albany. But I think ESPN2, nationally televised audience, close game is going to put, with Lance Leipold and that storyline that nobody seems to be willing to give up. He's gotten mentioned by every outlet across the country just for a win against Albany. Even with a loss, there's going to be a big jump in visibility for Buffalo, and that's not the point. You play to win the game. But I'm calling 33-28, and I think that by and large for a game that I think most people have penciled in as a real tough obstacle dating back for months, this is going to be something that if you had told us 8 months ago, 33-28, we all have been pretty happy with it. So that's what I'm going with. Conrad, you asked to be last. Door's knocking. It's your turn.
All right, so I think despite the talk of slowing down Penn State early, I think Penn State's going to get off early. I see it as 17-10 at the half. But I also have Penn State scoring early in the third, going up 24-10. Now this is where I think Buffalo is going to get a field goal and a touchdown two-point conversion to make it 24-21. At that point, that's when panic is going to set in Penn State. The crowd is going to get quiet, 110,000 fans, silent, and I think Buffalo's going to take advantage, get two scores. I got Ron Willoughby and Colin Lisa getting the touchdown passes, with Anthony Taylor and Jordan Johnson getting two touchdown runs, and I have 35-24 UB victory.
Oh, UB victory. Right, did I hear that right, Conrad?
Yeah, a little misdirection on the game thread notes, but yeah, I'm going 35-24 Buffalo. This is going to be the start of the Lance Leipold legend, the man who can lose no games. We're going to get Penn State.
He can lose 6, but it takes him 8 years to do it, and 3 of them have to come in 1 year.
I'm writing a screenplay where the coach, if he loses 10 games, he'll die. So he's going to have he's going to coach his butt off to not lose 10 games. So we'll see that in theaters coming up.
There was a movie recently about a guy who needed a certain amount of electricity running through his system or else he'd die. And
it's Crank. With
there's movies about having to keep a car going so fast
Speed.
or else the car blows up.
Oh, come on, dude, that's Keanu Reeves. That was one of his best movies.
No. Keanu Reeves' best movie was
his best movie was Point Break.
I've never seen that one. The baseball one, the inner city baseball one, was Keanu Reeves' best movie.
I don't know, Point Break with him and Patrick Swayze in Point Break. That by and far that was Keanu Reeves' best movie.
Hardball. Conrad's giving me Hardball. This is going to show my upbringing. But Hardball is the reason that I know the song that Conrad referenced in his brilliant video last year. I like it when you call me Big Papa. We haven't busted out the Lakota puns too much this year. Whether it's I like it when you call me Lakota or even Hakuna Lakota. We haven't really worked with. Hardball has some great quotes that I won't try to do right now because I'll get them wrong and just feel bad. Anyway, end of the show. Thanks for watching, everybody. We've got our shout-outs, our sign-off period. Tim did not give me any notes for this. Conrad's left it empty. I'm going to go John, Conrad, and myself, and then we'll close it out. So, John, all you.
All right, so my kind of sign-off shout-out thing is to Nate Rose, John Stutzman, and the wrestling staff. They are currently in Las Vegas right now, where Nate will wrestle in the World Championships. He'll be representing his native Trinidad and Tobago. He's an incoming freshman. He'll be wrestling, I believe it's 98 or it's 98 kilos he'll be wrestling at, but he wrestles at 197. He'll be wrestling 197 here for UB. And the World Championships are a really big deal. It's the best of the best in the world will be there. This is from all around the world, not like the Pan American Games where it's just North, South, and Central America. This is everywhere. So all the best from the wrestling powerhouse. You know, all the Russians will be there. Iran will be there. Anyone you can think of will be there. And if somehow Nate managed, I believe it's a top 5 finish, if I recall correctly. If he finishes top 5, then he earns a berth in the Olympic Games. So he has a great opportunity to wrestle against the best international competition there is. And, you know, it's more experience for him coming in, something that no other UB wrestler has ever done before. So it's a real step. It's a step forward for the wrestling program, showing that, you know, you come to UB, you can go wrestle at the international at the highest level. And these world championships, it's basically just a step below the Olympic Games. in terms of the size and scope and how many people will be there. So yeah, so I'll have updates on that as it comes along during the week. I believe Nate wrestles later this week. It's a big whole week long competition. I have to check the schedule again, but I believe he wrestles later in the week. I think Thursday or Friday. So we'll definitely keep an eye on him. If he finishes, I really think for some reason I have top 5 stuck in my head. I believe it's top 5. If not, it's something else. You don't have to win. You can place and still qualify for the Olympic Games that way. So, and Matt's telling me I have mentioned top 5 before, so apparently it's top 5. So if you finish top 5, you can qualify for the Olympic Games, and he would be, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first Olympian to ever attend UB. So that's my shout out. Go Nate Rose. Go kick some ass in Vegas. Make us proud.
All right, Conrad.
I'm just gonna shout out all the people working hard in the game, especially we'll say the athletic trainers who did a good job with the stoppage for Jordan Collier, making sure that he was safe, and I think the news is that he's okay. It was definitely a scary moment, especially when you have a stoppage and you see the ambulance come by, but it's also great to see that our staff took care of it in the appropriate way and made sure they follow the protocol. So that's my shout out. Thanks.
All right, to wrap things up, we've talked about Akil Lynch a bit here, Penn State's running back, who we're expecting to see a bit of this week. I'm staying in state in Pennsylvania to start. With another Buffalo guy, another guy from the Catholic League. Kadri Ollison stepped in for Pitt and ran for 206 yards this week for the Panthers. He's another Western New York guy. He went to Canisius, my alma mater. Conrad doesn't like Canisius very much, being a sweet home guy. But Ollison's going to be a feature back for the Panthers now because James Conner went down. They announced today he's out for the year. Reigning ACC Player of the Year, gone for the season with an MCL tear. So Ollison's going to get to show what he brought to Canisius High School a couple years ago. Another quick little shout out is to me. I'm shouting out to myself. I said on Twitter that women's soccer's win over Syracuse was their first ever against an ACC opponent. Louis Spina and the UB Athletic Department are saying it's the second, citing a win over Miami in 1999. Miami was not in the ACC in 1999. That's a Big East win. It is UB's first win over an ACC opponent. We're not playing around when we talk about Bull Run, and we know what we're doing here. So that's my shout out. I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to quibble with that detail. Listen to us. With that's everything we've got tonight. That's how you know you're old, Conrad.
That's how you know you're old is when you start talking about conferences that don't exist anymore. I was having a conversation about the Pac-10 before. I'm like, you sound like your dad. And you're like, back in the SWC would play the winners of the Big Eight. It's always bad.
Yeah, back when Penn State was an independent, racking up the. Yeah, so that's all we've got. Tim, we hope everything is all right. We will see you on the blog this week. We'll see you in the game thread on Saturday. Everybody's watching. Thanks for watching. Everybody watches after the fact. Thanks for watching, and good on you for not staying up late and paying attention to your health. John has an 8 o'clock class on Tuesdays, so we're really messing with his senior year academics here. Conrad's just going to go eat dinner now because he's in Hawaii. But from all of us at Bull Run, it's now Penn State week, big week. ESPN2 on Saturday will have plenty of coverage in the run-up. Catch you next week, same time, Mondays at 11. Have a good one.